Hey, my name is Ethan. I'm 27. 3 months ago, I was just the broke guy renting the apartment above my landlord's garage. Then one Saturday morning, she showed up at my door in a wedding dress. Mascara streaked down her face, satin soaking wet from the rain, and the smell of jasmine and panic filling the doorway. She looked at me and said, "I couldn't say I do to him." I asked her why not. And what she told me in that cramped apartment, it turned everything between us into a secret we'd be circling for years. If you're watching this right now, tell me where you're from in the comments. Because I still don't know if what we did was wrong. I wasn't supposed to notice her the way I did. She was my landlord, 42 years old, wedding planner, widow, owner of the big White House, while I rented the cramped apartment above her garage. I was 27, broke, freelance sound editor with student loans, and a car that barely started on cold mornings. The math didn't work. The situation didn't work. But some things don't ask permission before they start. I remember pulling up that first day in late spring, my hatchback stuffed with cardboard boxes and a mattress I'd bought off Craigslist. The house stood there, perfect and white, with trimmed hedges and a SUV in the driveway that probably cost more than I'd made in 2 years. My apartment was around back, up a set of wooden stairs that looked older than me. I was standing at the bottom, staring up, when the back door opened. "You must be Ethan." Her voice was smooth, professional, the kind that had organized 1,000 events and never let anything fall apart. She walked out in a crisp white blouse and dark jeans, hair pinned up, and I caught the scent before she even got close. Jasmine. Mixed with something else. Hairspray, maybe. It hung in the air between us like a question I didn't know how to answer yet. "Yeah," I said. "Thanks for, the place." "Claire," she said, extending a hand. Her grip was firm. Her ring finger had a thin gold band on a chain around her neck instead of where it should have been. I noticed. I shouldn't have noticed. She gave me the tour, showed me the apartment, small kitchen, smaller living room, bathroom that had probably been renovated sometime in the 90s. The whole place smelled like old wood and fresh paint. "House rules," she said, leaning against the doorframe. "No loud music after 10. Park on the right side of the driveway. Don't block the recycling bins on Thursdays." Got it. "And if you need anything?" She paused, glanced back towards the main house. "I'm usually around." I nodded, tried not to stare at the way the afternoon light cut across her face. That night, after I'd hauled all my boxes up those creaky stairs, 14 steps, I counted every one. I lay on my mattress and listened. The faint hum of traffic from the main road. A TV playing downstairs, muffled through the floor. And later, much later, the soft click of a porch light switching off. I stared at the ceiling and wondered who Claire Whitmore was when nobody was watching. The next morning I woke to the smell of coffee drifting up through the floorboards. I pulled on a t-shirt and went to the window. Down below, Claire was loading things into her car, clipboard, garment bags, boxes of what looked like fabric samples. She moved with the kind of precision that comes from doing the same routine 1,000 times. Her heels clicked against the driveway. I made instant coffee in my little kitchenette and tried not to feel like I was spying. Later that morning, I took the trash out. Wrong day, apparently, because a woman across the street waved at me with a coffee mug in her hand. "You're the new tenant," she called out. I walked over, awkward, because I didn't know the protocol for suburban street introductions. "Ethan," I said. "Melissa." She had sharp eyes and a smile that wasn't quite friendly yet. "How's Claire treating you?" "Good. She's nice." "She is." Melissa took a sip of her coffee, studying me. She's been through a lot. Her husband died 3 years ago. Heart attack. Sudden. I didn't know what to say to that. She threw herself into work after, Melissa continued. Hasn't really stopped since. I nodded, feeling like this was some kind of test I hadn't prepared for. Anyway, Melissa said, turning back toward her house. Welcome to the neighborhood. That evening, there was a knock on my door. Claire stood there with a plastic container. Leftover pasta, she said. I made too much. You didn't have to. I know. She handed it over, and I heard the soft clink of the chain around her neck brushing against the plastic lid. Her wedding band, hanging there like a promise she hadn't figured out how to let go of yet. Thank you, I said. She glanced past me into the apartment, saw the mismatched furniture, the couch I'd pulled from a thrift store, the second-hand desk shoved against the wall. It's cozy, she said. It's small. Same thing. She smiled, just a little. If you need anything. I know. You're around. She left, and I stood there holding the container, the scent of jasmine still lingering in the doorway. I ate the pasta on the couch that night, listened to her voice downstairs, talking to someone on the phone. Laughter. Light. The kind of sound that made you feel like you were overhearing a life you weren't supposed to be part of. I opened my laptop to work. Instead, I stared out the window at the porch light, reflecting in the driveway puddles. A week later, she hired me. It started casual. I was carrying laundry down on a Saturday morning, and she was loading floral arrangements into her car. Wedding stuff, lots of it. Need help? I asked. She hesitated, then nodded. If you have a minute. I helped her load everything. Vases, fabric runners, boxes of candles. My hands smelled like roses and eucalyptus afterward. My regular videographer bailed, she said, buckling her seatbelt. Last minute. I know you do sound, but I can do video, I said. It's not my main thing, but yeah. She bit her lip, thinking. I'll pay you, and knock a little off rent if you're okay with that. I should have said no. I should have kept it professional. But I said yes. The wedding was at a country club an hour outside the city. I'd never been to a place like that. White tablecloths, string lights, people in suits that cost more than my car. I watched Claire work. She was different there. Commanding. Calm. Headset on, clipboard in hand, directing staff like she was conducting an orchestra. I filmed everything. The setup, the guests arriving, the bride panicking about a missing bouquet that Claire found in under 90 seconds. At one point, a man approached her. Older, maybe 50, with graying hair and the kind of confidence that comes from never worrying about money. Claire, he said, touching her elbow. She turned, smiled. Richard, I didn't know you'd be here. Friend of the groom's family. He glanced at me, then back at her. Dinner next week? Sure. I kept filming, pretended I wasn't paying attention. On the drive back, Claire let me ride with her. My gear was in her trunk, and the sun was setting, and she looked exhausted in a way that made her seem more real. Long day, I said. Every wedding is a long day. She glanced over. You did good, though. Thanks. No problem. We drove in silence for a while. She turned on the radio, some soft jazz station, and I watched the trees blur past. Do you ever get tired of it? I asked. Making other people's big moments happen? She didn't answer right away. Sometimes, she finally said, but it's easier than making my own. Architected narrative pacing and emotional beats for forbidden romance story. Good start. I'm establishing Ethan's perspective and voice, simple, observant, aware of class difference, Claire as controlled but vulnerable. Their gradual closeness through work, sensory details, jasmine, stairs creaking, porch light, Natural dialogue with pauses. Richard's introduction. I need to continue building through. More intimate moments. The engagement party. The cocktail dress scene. Major intimacy moment. Wedding announcement. Pre-wedding tension. Leading up to but not including the wedding day. Target is 4,000 words for part 1, so I'm about 1,100 words in. Need to pace carefully and include the key emotional beats. Sunday morning, it rained. I was heading down to grab a package when I saw Claire struggling with grocery bags. 4 of them, awkward and heavy, and she was trying to balance them while unlocking the back door. "Let me," I said. She jumped a little, startled. "You don't have to." "I know." I carried them inside. First time I'd been in the main house properly. It was different from my place. Bigger. Cleaner. The couch looked expensive. The kitchen had granite counters and stainless steel appliances, but there were still traces of someone else's life. A golf trophy on a high shelf, a tie draped over a chair back, photos on the fridge that hadn't been updated in years. "Tea?" Claire asked, already filling the kettle. "Sure." I sat at the island while she unpacked groceries. We didn't talk much, just the sound of cabinets opening, the hum of the refrigerator, the rain tapping against the windows. Then she said it. Casual, like it didn't matter. "He died in a hospital. Daniel, my husband." She kept her back to me, organizing cans in the pantry. "Heart attack. They said it was fast, that he probably didn't feel much." I didn't know what to say. "I hate hospitals," she continued. "The smell, the lights, the way everyone talks to you like you're about to break." The kettle started to whistle. She poured 2 mugs, set one in front of me. Her engagement ring chain clinked against the ceramic. "You ever wish you could edit your life like you edit sound?" she asked, sitting down across from me. "Cut out the bad parts, make everything smooth." "Yeah," I said, "but it wouldn't be real anymore." She smiled. Sad. "No, it wouldn't." We sat there for a while, drinking tea, listening to the rain. Then there was a knock at the door. An older woman with a dog. Mrs. Klein. She lived a few houses down and apparently had a radar for when people were doing something interesting. "Claire, dear," she said, holding a plate of cookies. Then she saw me sitting at the island. "Oh, I didn't realize you had company." "This is Ethan," Claire said smoothly. "He rents the apartment. He was helping with groceries." Mrs. Klein's smile tightened just a little. "How nice. Well, I won't interrupt." She set the cookies on the counter and left, but not before giving me one more long look. After she was gone, Claire laughed, short and sharp. "That'll be all over the street by tomorrow," she said. "I can go." "No." She met my eyes. "Stay. Finish your tea." So I did. A couple weeks later, Richard started showing up more often. I'd hear his car pull into the driveway. Expensive engine, smooth and quiet. He'd stay for dinner, sometimes overnight, and leave early in the morning for the hospital where he worked. I met him properly one evening when I went to check the mail. Claire introduced us. "Ethan, this is Richard. Richard, Ethan rents the apartment." Richard shook my hand. Firm grip, assessing eyes. "Claire tells me you helped out at the Morrison wedding. That was good of you." "Just doing what she hired me for." "Still," he smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Nice to know she has someone reliable around." The way he said it, like I was staff. Maintenance. Not a person. I went back upstairs and tried not to think about it, but I did think about it. At the studio, my coworker Liam noticed. "You're distracted," he said, adjusting levels on a project we were mixing. "I'm fine. Is it the landlord thing? The older woman?" "It's not a thing." "Right." Liam grinned. "Just be careful, man. Rich people and their drama. It's not worth getting tangled up in. I nodded, but I was already tangled. The engagement party happened on a Saturday in June. Claire's backyard was transformed. String lights, tables with white cloths, flowers everywhere. I was hired to handle sound and film some candid moments. Guests arrived, hospital colleagues of Richard's, wedding vendors Claire knew, neighbors, Mrs. Klein, of course, with her dog and her watchful eyes. Melissa cornered me by the drink table. "Thanks for helping Claire," she said. "She's been stressed." "She seems fine." "She's good at seeming fine." Melissa studied me. "Just don't overthink the way she looks at you, okay? She does that with everyone. It doesn't mean anything." But the way she said it, it sounded like she was trying to convince herself. Later, I filmed Richard giving a speech. He talked about second chances, about how Claire had been through so much, and how he was grateful to bring stability back into her life. I watched Claire through the camera lens. She smiled, nodded, clapped when everyone else did. But her eyes, they looked somewhere else. Past the guests, past the lights. During a break, I found her in the kitchen. Alone. Hands braced on the counter, breathing deep. "You okay?" I asked. She straightened fast. "Fine, just catching my breath." "You don't have to." "I know." She turned, leaned against the counter. "Sometimes I feel like I'm watching my own life happen, like I'm behind the camera instead of in front of it." I understood that more than I should have. "The footage looks good," I said, changing the subject. "Everyone seems happy." "Yeah." She glanced toward the window, toward Richard laughing with his colleagues. "Everyone seems happy." That night, I edited the video in my apartment. I kept replaying one shot. Claire and Richard dancing under the string lights after most guests had left. She'd pulled away too quickly. Went inside while he was still smiling. I turned off my computer. Lay on my bed. Listened to the silence. The porch light stayed on longer than usual that night. I could see it from my window, casting shadows across the driveway. I wondered if she was standing at her own window, looking out at the same light. 3 weeks later, everything shifted. It was late, after 11. I was editing audio when I heard footsteps on the stairs outside. Slow, unsteady. Then a knock. I opened the door. Claire stood there in a cocktail dress. Black. Elegant. But her lipstick was smudged, her hair was loose, and she smelled like jasmine and wine. "Do you have a safety pin?" she asked. Maybe." "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. She walked into my apartment like she'd been thinking about it for a while. Touched my shelves, looked at my equipment, ran her fingers along the spines of my books. "This is more you than my whole house is me," she said quietly. "What happened?" "Richard took me to a wine tasting, made a toast, said he was excited to tame my wild side." She laughed, but it wasn't happy. Everyone thought it was charming. I didn't say anything. She turned to face me. "I need you to unzip me. I can't breathe." My hands shook as I found the zipper, pulled it down slowly. Her bare shoulders were inches from me. The smell of jasmine was overwhelming. She slipped out of the dress, standing there in a slip, and wrapped herself in the blanket from my couch. Then she sat down and cried. Not loud, just quiet tears that she didn't try to stop. "I don't know what I'm doing," she whispered. "I'm doing everything right. I'm grateful. I'm moving on. I'm choosing stability. But every time I try to picture it, I just feel small." I sat next to her, close but not touching. "Promise me something," she said, looking at me with red eyes. "If I'm walking toward something that looks wrong, you'll see it before I do. You'll tell me." Claire. Promise. Okay. She leaned her head on my shoulder. Just for a moment. Then she pulled away, wiped her face, and stood up. Put the dress back on. Smoothed her hair. Thank you, she said, for letting me be nobody important for an hour. She left. I stood there for a long time after the door closed. The scent of jasmine lingered. The porch light below stayed on until almost 3 in the morning. The next day, she acted like nothing had happened. Handed me an envelope at the mailbox. Wedding invitation. Hers and Richard's. The date was set for 2 months away. I want you to handle the audio, she said. Casual, breezy. And some behind-the-scenes footage, if you're available. Yeah, sure. Her hand shook just a little as I took the invitation. I went back upstairs and stared at the raised lettering. The formal script. The promise of something that felt wrong even though it looked perfect on paper. The weeks before the wedding blurred together. I filmed her tasting cakes, testing sound at the church, sitting at her kitchen table late at night, practicing vows that didn't sound right. She kept her distance, professional, polite. But sometimes our eyes met, and we both remembered that night in my apartment. Mrs. Klein told me one afternoon that everyone on the street was so relieved Claire was moving on. Melissa left me a voicemail thanking me for keeping things professional. Richard started staying over more. His car in the driveway became routine, and I counted down the days on my wall calendar, the red circle getting closer, and I didn't know if I wanted it to arrive or not. 1 week before the wedding, Claire asked me to come to the bridal shop. I need you to test lighting, she said, for the dress shots. The shop was quiet, just us and a seamstress in the back. Claire stepped out in the wedding dress. It was beautiful. Satin. Lace. Expensive. She looked beautiful. She also looked terrified. What do you think? She asked, voice small. I adjusted the camera. You look like yourself. Is that good? Yeah. The seamstress fussed over the hem. Claire stared at herself in the mirror. I saw her hands trembling. On the drive back, we didn't talk much. The radio played softly. Her jasmine scent filled the car. Finally, she said, Sometimes I feel like I'm staging someone else's movie. Everyone expects a happy ending, and I'm not sure I belong in the frame. I kept my eyes on the road. Then don't do it. It's not that simple. Why not? She didn't answer. That night, I hung her garment bag in my apartment. Temporary storage. The dress hung from my curtain rod, satin brushing against my thrifted couch. The contrast was almost funny. Almost. The rehearsal dinner was the night before the wedding. Nice restaurant. Richard's friends, Claire's vendors, Melissa in a bridesmaid dress, already half drunk. I filmed speeches. Richard stood up, glass raised. To Claire, the woman who survived more than most of us ever will, I'm grateful every day that she's letting me bring some peace back into her life. Everyone clapped. Claire smiled. I kept the camera rolling. During a break, she stepped outside to the patio. I followed to adjust the outdoor speakers. We ended up alone under string lights. I practiced my vows today, she said quietly. My voice stopped on, I promise, just stopped. I didn't say anything. When I try to picture the future, she continued, all I can see is your apartment, your couch, your cheap kettle, the way I could breathe there. Claire, you were right, she said, meeting my eyes. About being honest, about promises meaning something. We stood there. Close. Too close. You're the only place in this whole thing that doesn't feel like a set, she whispered. Then someone called her name from inside. She walked away. I stayed outside, holding my camera, hands shaking. The night before the wedding, she texted me. "Can you come downstairs? Speaker issue." I went. The living room was full of gift bags and place cards. Music played softly. The processional she'd be walking to in less than 12 hours. "I can't write my vows," she admitted, scrolling through her phone. "I keep trying, and nothing sounds true." Melissa showed up halfway through. Drunk, loud, made a joke about me and Claire having a secret tech romance. We both denied it too fast. After Melissa left, Claire and I stood in the dim living room. "What makes a promise real?" she asked. "Consistency," I said. "Small acts, not just big speeches." She moved closer. "I'm too tired to be anyone's mistake tonight." "You're not a mistake." She didn't answer. Just asked me to be on time in the morning, to capture whatever happens. I went back to my apartment, watched from my window as she stood alone in her kitchen, engagement ring glinting, as she leaned against the counter. The porch light stayed on. I turned mine off and waited for morning. The wedding morning arrived cold and clear. My alarm went off at 6. I was already awake. I got dressed, black pants, white shirt, grabbed my equipment and drove to the church early to set up. The building was empty, just me and the echo of my footsteps on marble floors. I tested microphones, adjusted cameras, ran cables down the aisles. "Sound check," I said into the empty sanctuary. "Sound check." My voice bounced back at me. I thought about calling in sick, faking an emergency, anything to not be there for what was about to happen, but I'd promised to capture whatever happened. So I stayed. By 9, the church was filling up. Guests in expensive suits and dresses, flowers everywhere. The organist warming up with soft, practiced notes. I saw Richard at the altar, talking with the minister. He looked calm, happy, completely unaware. Melissa rushed past me, phone to her ear, coordinating something with the florist. Mrs. Klein sat in the third row, watching everything. Through a side window, I caught a glimpse of Claire in the bridal room, veil down, bouquet in hand, her uncle beside her, whispering something encouraging. I adjusted my camera and tried to keep my hands steady. The processional began at 10. Music swelled. Bridesmaids walked down the aisle in pale blue dresses. Melissa smiled at the crowd, but her eyes found mine for just a second. Worried. Then the doors at the back opened. Claire stood there with her uncle. The dress I'd hung in my apartment now fit her perfectly, satin catching the light, veil soft around her face. She looked beautiful. She also looked like she was about to be sick. The music played. Everyone stood. She took one step forward, then another. Then she stopped. I was filming from the side, and I saw everything. The way her hands shook around the bouquet, the way her breathing went shallow, the way her uncle leaned in and whispered, "It's just nerves, sweetheart." But it wasn't nerves. She turned her head slightly, looking past the guests, past Richard waiting at the altar, past everything. Then she stepped backward. "I can't," she said. Quiet. But in that silent church, it carried. Gasps, whispers. Richard's face went pale. "Claire?" She shook her head, lifted her dress slightly, turned, and walked out the side door. Melissa started after her, but Claire was already gone. I kept the camera rolling even as chaos spread through the church. Guests standing. Richard running down the aisle. The minister frozen at the altar. I packed my equipment fast and left through the back. My phone buzzed as I reached my car. A text from Claire. "Can you meet me at your place?" I drove too fast. Rain started halfway home, light and cold. I parked behind the house and rushed toward the stairs. But I didn't make it to the top, because Claire was already there, standing at the bottom of the wooden staircase in her wedding dress. veil crooked, mascara streaked down her face, heels unsteady on wet concrete. "Claire," she looked up at me. "I couldn't say I do to him." I came down slowly. "Why not?" She started climbing, each step creaking under satin and lace. "Because every time I tried to picture saying those words, I kept thinking about your apartment, your couch, the way the kettle whistles, the way I can breathe when I'm here." I reached the top and opened the door. She walked inside. The wedding dress filled my tiny entryway, soaking the mat. She stood there, trembling, and I didn't know what to do. "Say something," she whispered. "I'm making tea." It was the only thing I could think of. I filled the kettle, the click, the rising whistle, the familiar sounds that somehow made everything feel less impossible. Claire sat on my thrifted couch, satin pooling around her like a strange, beautiful wreck. "I stood there," she said, voice shaking, "and I thought about the rest of my life. Being taken care of, being safe, being grateful for stability I didn't ask for." I handed her the mug. She wrapped both hands around it. "And then I thought about you," she continued. "How you listen, how you don't try to fix me, how I can sit in your apartment and just exist." "Claire." "I'm not saying this is about you," she said quickly. "I'm saying you were the only place today that didn't feel like a set, and I couldn't walk down that aisle knowing I was choosing the wrong kind of quiet." We sat in silence. The hum of distant traffic, the faint sound of rain. Then she set down the mug and turned to me. "Can you unzip me? I can't breathe in this thing." My hands fumbled with the buttons at her back. So many buttons. Her bare shoulders inches from my face. The scent of jasmine everywhere. She stepped out of the dress in the tiny bathroom, put on my oversized sweatshirt and sweatpants, came back out looking smaller, younger, real. We sat on the edge of my bed, ate cold toast over the sink, talked about nothing and everything, and then she pressed her forehead to mine. "You were the only place today that didn't feel like a set," she whispered again. I kissed her, soft, hesitant, both of us pulling back almost immediately. We sat in stunned silence. Outside, a car door slammed. Her phone started buzzing on the counter. Reality crashed back in. She grabbed her phone. 30 missed calls. Richard, Melissa, unknown numbers. "Oh God," she breathed. I stood, looked out the window. Richard's car pulled into the driveway. "He's here." Claire went pale. "If he comes up, if he sees me here?" "Go," I said. "I'll stay here. I won't say anything." She pulled on her coat over my sweatshirt, ran down the stairs so fast I thought she'd fall. I stood at my window and watched. Richard got out of his car, saw her. His face was a storm of confusion and anger. "Where the hell were you?" "I needed air. I drove around." "You left me at the altar, Claire. At the fucking altar." Melissa's car pulled up. Then Mrs. Klein appeared on her porch, dog leash in hand, watching everything. Voices carried up through the rain. Claire's, Richard's, Melissa trying to mediate. I stood frozen, barely breathing. Claire never looked up at my window, never mentioned my name. But Richard kept glancing at the apartment above the garage, at the lit window, at the shape of the wedding dress hanging visible through the blinds. I saw the moment he started putting pieces together. That night, the street went quiet. Cars left, voices faded. I texted Claire. No response. Called. Voicemail. 2 days passed like that. I went to work, came home, listened to the silence downstairs. The porch light stayed off. On the third day, I got a voicemail from Melissa. "Hey, just wanted to thank you for keeping things professional during all this. Claire's taking some time. We're handling things. Appreciate your help with the footage." Her voice was carefully neutral, like she suspected something but didn't want to know for sure. A week after the wedding that never happened, I came home to find a "for sale" sign in Claire's front yard. Mrs. Klein appeared beside me as if summoned. "Such a shame," she said, shaking her head. "Claire's moving on. Needs a fresh start, apparently." "Where's she going?" "Didn't say, but between you and me." She leaned in. "I think the stress got to her. Poor thing." I went upstairs, tried calling Claire again, texted. Nothing. At the studio, Liam said, "You should find a new place, before this gets awkward." "It's already awkward." "Then get out before it gets worse." 2 weeks later, Melissa knocked on my door. She came in with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses, looked exhausted. "Did Claire come up here that day?" she asked. Direct, no preamble. I hesitated. "Yeah, for a few minutes. She needed to breathe before deciding what to do." "That's it?" "That's it." Melissa studied me. "Richard thinks something happened. Between you two?" "Nothing happened." She wanted to believe me. I could see it. "She told me she couldn't promise something that didn't feel true," Melissa said quietly. "But she won't tell me why. Won't tell me what made her realize it." I stayed silent. "If Richard ever finds out you were involved..." Melissa shook her head. "It would be bad. For your work. For Claire's reputation. For everything." "I know." "Find a new place, Ethan. Soon." After she left, I opened my laptop and started searching for apartments. The real estate agent's email came 3 weeks after the failed wedding. "The property will be listed. You have 60 days to vacate." I saw Claire once during those 60 days. She was in the driveway talking to the agent. Thin, tired, hair pulled back. "Hi," I said. "Mr. Ward." Her voice was distant, formal. "Thank you for understanding about the move." Mr. Ward. Like we were strangers. Like she hadn't cried on my couch in my sweatshirt. Like I hadn't kissed her. "Of course," I said. The agent looked between us, sensing something but not understanding it. I went back upstairs and started packing. I found a place above a coffee shop in the city. Small, loud, expensive, but it was mine. Moving day came. Liam helped load boxes into a rental van. Claire appeared in the doorway as we were finishing. "Thank you," she said, "for everything. I'm taking a break from weddings for a while and selling the house to start over." I wanted to say so much. "Sorry. Thank you. I miss the porch light. I miss your voice downstairs. I miss feeling like I was part of something even when I wasn't." Instead, I said, "Take care. You too." No hug, no touch, just a long look that said everything we couldn't. I drove away watching the porch light in my side mirror. It stayed off. 3 months passed in my new apartment. I adjusted, got more clients, decorated a little, bought a better couch, but I felt hollow. Liam set me up on a coffee date with a friend of his. Nice woman. Pretty. Age appropriate. I spent the whole time comparing her laugh to Claire's, her perfume to jasmine, her stories to late-night conversations over tea. I went home feeling guilty for mentally replacing someone with a ghost. At night, I'd check Claire's old business website. "Coming soon, reimagined," it said. No updates, no social media posts. I wondered where she was. I wondered if she thought about me. I wondered if the porch light ever turned on wherever she was now. Then, at 2:10 a.m. on a random Tuesday, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A photo. A warm light glowing in a window above a shop across from my building. The florist shop I passed every day. The message read, "Top floor, above the florist." I stared at it, confused, then zoomed in. In the reflection of the window, barely visible, was Claire. I got up, Walked to my window, looked across the street, the top floor above the florist. A light was on. A figure moved to the glass. Claire. Hair in a messy bun. No ring. Older. Softer. Real. We stood there, separated by road and glass and 3 months of silence, staring at each other like we couldn't believe it. Another text. Didn't know you lived right there until I saw you in the window tonight. Rented the space last week. Small studio, more personal. Didn't pick it for you, but here we are. I texted back, here we are. We stayed at our windows, 2 lit squares in the darkness. I didn't go downstairs. She didn't cross the street. We just stood there, like 2 porch lights facing each other. The next morning, I walked out of my building and nearly collided with Claire coming out of the florist entrance with a box of fabric samples. Hi, she said. Hi. We laughed, awkward, relieved. We got coffee at the shop downstairs. She told me about the last few months. Selling the, house, staying with a cousin, seeing a therapist, deciding to rebuild her business smaller, more honest. Intimate weddings, she said. Elopements, real moments, not productions. Sounds good? It is. She stirred her coffee. I'm still figuring things out. What part of that day was about you? What part was about me? About grief I never processed. About trying to make everyone happy except myself. I get it. We talked about the kiss, the wedding, the way everything fell apart. I don't regret running, she said quietly. But I can't pretend I know what this is. Between us. We don't have to pretend anything. No late-night breakdowns in each other's apartments? She asked. No pretending the past didn't happen, I countered. No rushing into anything labeled. Deal. Over the next few months, a routine developed. Claire would drop off leftover flowers for my workspace. I'd help carry props up her steep stairs. We'd share lunch on the bench outside sometimes. Public, low-key. Melissa visited once, saw me across the street, gave me a look that was half suspicious, half resigned. But she didn't say anything. Liam met Claire when he stopped by for coffee, put 2 and 2 together. The landlord, he said after she left. Yeah. You're an idiot. Probably. But she seems different, calmer. She is. We were different too. Separate lives that occasionally overlapped. No promises, no pressure. Just 2 people who'd been through something strange and came out the other side still willing to exist near each other. One evening, months later, I was locking up my apartment when I saw Claire locking her studio door across the street. We met at the crosswalk. Long day? I asked. Always. Our hands brushed as we both reached for the button. Just a touch. Brief. Charged. We smiled. Small. Knowing. Then went to our separate doors. I climbed my stairs. She climbed hers. I got to my window, looked across. She was at hers, looking back. 2 lights in the darkness. By early autumn, the routine felt permanent. I worked. She worked. We helped each other with projects occasionally, ate takeout on the bench, texted jokes about difficult clients. We never talked about being together, never made plans beyond next week. The age gap, the history, the secret of what happened in my old apartment above her garage. It was all still there, but it wasn't heavy anymore, just part of the story. One night, I was editing by my window. Claire was cleaning her studio across the street. We both paused at the same time, looked at each other through the glass. She smiled. I smiled back. Then we returned to our work. I thought about doors, the ones I'd walked through, the ones I'd closed, and the one with Claire, the one I'd kept cracked open with the light still on, not flung wide, not locked shut. Just there, with space to breathe. to exist. To maybe, someday, see what happened next. Some doors you walk through, some you close, and some you just leave cracked, with the light still on. If she had said, "I do," would you tell her she was wrong to stay?